Good evening and a warm welcome. I'm Grihatul Siddiqui and you're watching the explosive weekend debate. Israeli tanks and weapons have been deployed on its border fence with Gaza as the military build-up continues amid relentless bombardment. This, even as an estimated 1 million Gazans have been displaced in the first 7 days of conflict with Israel. According to aid groups sent by the United Nations agency supporting Palestinian refugees, the situation in the besieged enclave is catastrophic. How else does one see it? When of the 2,300 Palestinians killed in the Israeli air raids, 724 are children. The number of Israelis killed in Hamas's military operation stands at 1,300, and that includes 286 soldiers. Also, there's been an expanded emergency cabinet that's been convened by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And the word coming out of it is to quote-unquote demolish Hamas in Gaza. Though as Israel plans a ground invasion of northern Gaza, a statement by US President Joe Biden has highlighted the distinction between Palestinian citizens and Hamas leaders, saying that most Palestinians had quote-unquote nothing to do with the October 7 attack on Israel. So even as US supports Israel, it's been made clear that no American troops will participate in the operation. Israel's bombardment of Gaza in response to the attack by militant group Hamas last week has drawn criticism from several quarters across the world who have also accused it of violating international laws. Among the detractors also of Israel's move include some of the Jews who have accused the country of committing war crimes and attempting genocide.
बॉर्डर पे मौजूद है गाजा और इजराइल के बॉर्डर पे। एक तरफ से इजराइल तोप से गोले दाग रहा है तो दूसरी तरफ तैयारी भी कर रहा है। ये टैंक आप देख सकते हैं।
During the night, there were rockets fired at Tel Aviv and southern Israel. There is still combat in and around the northern part of the Gaza Strip, and the IDF continues to operate above the Gaza Strip and to attack different military targets belonging to Hamas.
Let me take this across to my guests who join me on the broadcast this evening. Prabhu Dayal, who's a former diplomat, is with us. Also with us is Dave Shantin, who's an activist and resident from Tel Aviv in Israel. Also joining us is Irina Tsukerman, who's a national security and lawyer and geopolitical analyst and also president of Scrab Rising INC, a strategic advisory. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on this important debate that we must have, as the escalation by Israel also continues, and also there is a huge humanitarian crisis that is looming large on Gaza and Israel. I'd like to first begin with Irina. Irina, what you have to say about the current on-ground invasion that Israel now has launched. Now they are going to retaliate, and the tanks, the weapons, everything have lined up around the Gaza border, even as more than 1.1 million people have been dislocated from their houses, all the Gazans who are moving out of the North Gaza territory to safer zones. I wonder what that is.
Well, it has now been exactly over a week now since the launch of the actual terrorist attack against Israel and the start of the war. The fact that Israel has given that much time for Gaza residents to prepare and to evacuate from the offensive is unprecedented. No other country would have waited so long and taken so much care to avoid civilian casualties as Israel. Now, anything that happens Any civilians that come to harm will be entirely on Hamas, which actively sought to prevent them from leaving. Israel took extra days that are costing it in military operational preparedness and in inability to capture the or kill the terrorists quickly in order to avoid those human casualties. But by contrast, what has Hamas done? It has continued to occupy civilian buildings, which is why this operation is necessary to begin with. It has failed to release any hostages and instead boasted of killing them. It has gone around the world encouraging further violence against Jews, Israelis, and anyone else who gets in the way. And the international community has failed to launch any pressure either against Hamas or against countries that have been helping Hamas. They have instead focused their attention on Israel's self-defense. I assure you that had any of these countries been invaded and had any of the citizens been murdered in such a brutal manner, and had any organization left the mark of ISIS afterwards, the conversation we would be having would be entirely different. Let's recall that Hamas left an ISIS insignia at one of the locations of its brutal terrorist attacks. ISIS is considered a genocidal terrorist group that has committed intentional genocide against Yazidis. Israel's Hamas leaving that sign means that it had the same intention, genocidal intention against Israel, and only circumstances and lack of sufficient resources preventing it from accomplishing that task. So
Irina, I really want to understand this. You were saying, had this conflict really erupted in any other place, we would have had a different conversation than what we are having right now. Here we are talking about an age-old conflict. This conflict goes back for more than 70 years between Israel and Palestine. Now there is, of course, a militant group that is backed by Palestine, and some members, from the Palestinian population, might I reiterate, this has committed crimes on Israelis, because of which we are seeing this escalation. Nobody is going on to support what the Hamas has ended up committing. But what Israel's counteroffensive is doing to those 2.5 million people who reside within that narrow stretch, the Gaza Strip, what happens to those people? Two wrongs cannot make a right.
Well, the only right in this case is self-defense, and hopefully dislodging Hamas so it could not hold these people.
Where are the numbers about dislodging Hamas? I really want to understand, out of attacking Gaza, how many Hamas operatives have been, in fact, neutralized by the IDF? Are there numbers which are out there in the open that have, in fact, been put out by Israeli authorities?
Israel has put out that approximately 15 to 1,600 terrorists.
You're talking about approximately. I want numbers, ma'am. We only know.
That has not been an exact number.
No. I only would like to understand there has been one operative which has been named by Israel. They are saying he was responsible for, in fact, launching this open attack on Israel on the 7th of October. He has been killed, neutralized by the IDF. That's it. Otherwise, where are the numbers that have claimed that there are so many Hamas's operatives that have been neutralized by the IDF and civilians are not being targeted for no reason?
There are no Hamas operatives who have been named. But Israel has operational reasons for not naming every operative that it kills, specifically in order to disrupt the further operations by these operatives. It is a military posture not to disclose all the information in order not to help the enemy.
Okay, let me